Hello, everyone. This is Zach's Traders Cafe for Zach Weekly Review. I am Molly Eldridge from Molly Eldridge Consulting, and this is Zach Meehan, as I'm sure you all know.
Hi Molly, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Well, it's our second run at this. The first one, I think maybe most people missed it, but this is a proper one now. And basically, the idea is that we will look through some of the market news and also maybe more topical news which might affect the market, etc., etc. But trying to do it from a different angle, not necessarily lefty or righty, but hopefully correcty, if that's the right thing to say. Or you know what I'm saying. Apart from, I suppose the main thing this morning is that we've got Russian nuclear missiles pointing at London.
We have.
Does
You
that
didn't ask me.
does that concern you at all?
Well, I mean, Trump's here to save the world, isn't he? So, should we be scared? Should we not? I'm not really sure. I mean, yes, of course, um, all things to do with Russia, I feel are a little bit of concern at the moment. It's a little bit unpredictable. No one really knows what's going on, but I guess when Trump takes up his next presidency in January. I'm curious to see what happens with that relationship and where that goes.
Well, unfortunately, we won't be here because we'll all be nuked by then because Biden's allowed Zelensky to fire missiles into Russia. But it's fine. I'm sure it won't come to that. It'll be okay. And also, it's Christmas. Nobody has a war at Christmas, do they?
Exactly. We're not.
So that was one of the things. I think the other thing is here that there's a bit of a disconnect between the news and a possible. I mean, the Starmer regime seems to have got itself into a bit of a problem over one or two issues which we can't mention because there's probably some kind of legal block on it. But the farming thing, I think, is the main one in the sense that it means that the tax on farmers and the inheritance tax on farmers, which left-leaning people say, oh, well, if you've got a 10 million pound farm, you'll only be paying £500,000 or whatever it is, but in inheritance tax. But what everyone seems to forget about inheritance tax is you've already paid a taxed money in order to buy whatever you are going to inherit, or somebody has paid that. So whether it's on a house or a farm or whatever it is. And why should you have double tax and sometimes triple tax on things where you've already done the work? So that is the problem. I think there will be a disaster. I think the farmers are not going to leave this alone. I think we should stock up on all our turkey and sausages and all the other stuff that you eat at Christmas. So vegan pie or whatever it is. You look like a vegan, Molly. And so basically that kind of thing. That it's not looking good. But the problem with Labour is that even though it pays off many people, the unions, etc. This one seems to be one that is good at just upsetting people across the board. So even its own natural supporters, and that is a problem. But the
I
situation.
agree. I think people are sorry to
No, no,
interrupt. I
no.
think people are upset because they feel like they're being punished for doing the right thing. And there's we were promised more transparency. There's been a lack of transparency. I saw an article on LinkedIn earlier this week about sort of Rachel Reeves going back and trying to edit her CV, to which someone responded with an article. I think it was from the Mail actually, where with sort of all the elements of the lack of transparency when Boris Johnson was in office. So it's just the same problem. Just it's not. People just want a bit of transparency and they want to be rewarded for going about their business in the right way and doing the right thing. And it doesn't feel like that's the case at the moment.
Well, yeah,
So,
but the getting out of, so I'm trying to get out of that left right thing, which is very difficult for me, but and for everyone else as well. There's 2 points with Rachel Reeves and her CV. One is that nobody tells the truth on their CV, so why should she? The second point, nobody ever tells the truth on their CV. I mean, apart from your date of birth, which probably also cheat on that as well. Everything else is a work of fiction. So that I don't think that's a problem. People understand that that's what happens. But the other problem is that on transparency, etc. Once people get into power, the power goes to their head. And whether if you were prime minister, if I was prime minister, we would start be going into that let them eat cake mode, and we were making difficult choices, not for ourselves, but for you, and all this sort of stuff, which is very Marie Antoinette. It's that people get into that mode, and
Mm,
there's nobody who's been in power in recent times who's not had that sort of snooty, holier than thou type of thing. Well, I mean, maybe the most humble person was in the recent past, maybe John Major, or that kind of John Major, perhaps he was sort of standing on his soapbox, which you probably can't remember, and otherwise, as soon as people get into power, the power goes to their head, which is why in the old days. We used to
yeah,
have old people who, like who were 65, 70, where the power didn't go to their head because, they were going to die at any minute. And so it didn't really matter to them. But now you have career politicians, and that's the problem that, Rachel Reeves, I can't tell how old she is, she's no spring chicken, but it's just one of
mm.
those things, she's earning 300-400 grand a year through all her business interests. And you had all the thing with
Yeah.
the
You're put in this
free
position of
tickets,
power,
the
feels good.
yeah, free tickets, and then the chauffeur-driven car and
Yeah,
everything else. And obviously, if I was in power, none of that would affect me, and I'd be going riding around on a bicycle or just walking, and
absolutely.
so would you. But for some reason, when people get into power, they just can't control themselves, and they also start talking rubbish as well. But
Yeah,
I think the farmers thing will be a problem, and I think it is something which is going to, erode the brand of this country yet further. And we'll see all the blockades, and we'll see all this sort of the queues and everything else. And I think that's serious. I mean, that was a move that nobody saw coming, and no, I mean, just nobody expected that at all.
no,
Obviously, the government said there would be no taxes basically anyway. So all the 40 billion of taxes that we've had have been a bit of a surprise, but not so much of a surprise on national insurance, not so much of a surprise on gains tax. But the
yeah,
surprise, which nobody could have guessed, I think, is the one that is going to get them into trouble, a bit like the poll tax did for Margaret Thatcher in 1990. That was the thing that brought her down, along with her anti-EU stance. But that was the thing that brought her down, because she just came up with something. Okay, there's going to be a poll tax. Everyone who lives in a house has to be taxed. And so
yeah,
the farming thing is analogous to that, in the sense that the farmers were just sitting there quite happily, sowing their wheat, or feeding their cows or whatever they do, and all of a sudden somebody said, well, you can't pass on that farm to the next generation. And I think it is a problem, and it's not thought out. It's not thought out in the way that the VAT on school fees was not thought out. It was obviously, it can be
yeah,
worked on, and it can, a solution can be found, but it's like, we'll do this first, and then we'll address any problems with it afterwards. That's,
yeah,
sort of shoot first, think later. And that isn't really a way of running a government. Unless you, I mean, well, I suppose if you don't care what people think, then it's a very good way of running a government. But that's not a way of the consensus way of running a government is normally, tell people what you're going to do, you see the reaction, and then you either do it or you don't do it. Because you're coming up with unpopular policies, then obviously you can't tell them what you're going to do in advance.
precisely. And, just speaking of the farming sector, the national insurance contributions and, following on from that, the, minimum wage as well, the hospitality sector. What do you think is going to happen, with the sort of impact there, Zach?
The main impact there is that the minimum cost of a bottle of wine, it will go from £30 in a restaurant to 50 or 60. That's the addict. So they've got to get their money somewhere, and that's what we're looking
Yeah,
at. So probably food in pubs, or wine in restaurants. That's where they get the money back. You get charged if you don't turn up as well. Like £10 a head. It's already happening that that the restaurant
yeah,
business is not working, and it's too expensive, and unless you're completely high end or completely low end, fish and chips or the Ritz, things in between, it doesn't work. But it's already getting into crisis mode, I think.
So you're saying that the sort of price setback is going to fall on the consumer actually rather than the companies. So I was thinking sort of what's going to, what does the hospitality stock market look like in a year's time? Where does that responsibility lie?
Well, yeah, but the
So
problem
people,
is that we've already been taxed up to the eyeballs anyway. So people, I just think people just won't go out, and they will, if they go out for a pint, and then they come back in a hurry. We're getting squeezed, and I think the problem is we were already at the end of our tether at the end of the Conservative government, because they'd raised taxes with great gusto and joy. And basically, the reason we voted for a change because we were hoping that after being taxed up to the eyeballs, it couldn't go any higher. But obviously, now it's gone through the roof. Not mixing too many metaphors. I think there'll be a problem. I think you're getting that. You'll just have angry groups around the place, whether it's the farmers or whether it's the hospitality industry or whether it's
goers,
just
yeah,
just you
yeah,
name it. They've just upset lots of people,
yeah,
pensioners,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
obviously. There's hardly anyone now who's been untouched by this horror coming from a level where we were already at the end of our tether. I think that is something to say. I think that's one of the reasons that Labour got in, because there wasn't any giveaway budget in the spring by the Conservatives. They could have abolished inheritance tax. They could have lowered capital gains tax. They're going to lose anyway, and
Yeah.
it would have been a way of at least ensuring that they have more chance of when they come back, ensuring that they'll come back with with the majority themselves. But the stock market has been ruined with the tax on AIM stocks as well, the inheritance tax there. They've already left no stone unturned. And even, I mean, given that, you can see that even Labour's natural allies have been relatively quiet in terms of what they've done, and a few sort of liberal lovey actors have also even complained. I mean, this is unheard of. That the people, the Carol Vordermans, etc., even they've had to admit that it's Stephen Fry, people like that. They've had to admit, well, actually, not been that great. We were really hoping it'd be good, but it's not been
Yes.
that good. So, this is as bad as it could be. I think that obviously we weren't doing this before. I wasn't talking to you before either during the summer, but the in the summer when the Conservatives won on July the 4th, I told tearful Conservatives that the government won't last a year. And
Mm.
they said, well, no,
Yeah.
because it's a fixed term and they've got a massive majority and everything else. Well, I think I said that knowing 50 years of, what's been happening since, in politics. I think unbelievably, this government won't last its whole term. And obviously, that means that Keir Starmer won't last that long either, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be, it could be the same sort of mess as we had under the Conservatives, where you have a succession of different leaders.
Yes, very much could
or
be. Yeah.
or actually things just become, if they don't back down on the farmers, the food, etc.
Yeah.
There'll have to be an election. It'll be what we had in 1974, which was who governs Britain. It'll be one of those situations. But we're back in the 1970s, which had many good things about it, but the instability of government was not
Was not one.
was a negative
Mm.
there, and I think we've got to prepare for that really. The beauty of it is the
Um,
contrast between here, where we're far left, and in the US, where we're far right. So Trump's sort of walking around as, so I told you so, and I'd be back, and everything is back like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But there you've got almost the mirror image of what we have here, in the sense that you've got people involved in his administration, like Musk and JFK, so RFK Jr., which it was JFK Jr.
Junior,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Who would be seen as, by the left as crackpot as the people we have here, like the Lammies and the Angela Rayner's and all that stuff. So It's going to be very interesting. What could possibly go wrong? We're all sitting in a room together. That'd be, just absolutely fantastic, really.
What could possibly go wrong?
So that's that.
And what do you think about Robert Kennedy Jr.'s stance on vaccines? The fact that he is an anti-vaxxer, and of course Trump rolled out was it Trump? It was Trump that rolled out this COVID vaccine a
Well,
few years
he didn't
ago.
have much choice. In fact, he didn't. He didn't. It wasn't actually Pfizer early unveiled the vaccine the day after the election once he'd lost. So that was their
Yes,
strategy,
that's
and
right.
he was a bit bit and twisted about that, as I would be as well. I think that probably whether you're RFK Jr. or anybody else, you'd probably see with the benefit of hindsight that we probably didn't we could have done without the vaccines. We did, we'd probably still all be alive. The people, anyone under 60 who had it, probably didn't actually need to have it, or anyone under even 70 didn't need to have it, et cetera,
Mm.
et cetera. So I think the jury's out on the vaccine. The jury's out on COVID as well, and probably we'll never know, because it'll be like a conspiracy theory that goes on forever. I think that most of us will probably still be alive after the first wave of COVID deaths that we have, which you can have, you have every winter, let's say. But it was
Yes. Well, I was going to
absolutely.
say there's another wave, another variant coming through the UK at the moment.
Oh, good. There's one every day, I'm sure.
It does
Comes in
seem to
by
be that way, doesn't
comes in by Heathrow. I'm sure it's wonderful. But the I think what we know now, RFK is not as crazed as he sort of is given the impression of being. But at the same time, we didn't know that we wouldn't all die at that time. The
it?
PPE equipment that was spent. I think £8 billion has been thrown, gone up in smoke. They've
Public needed to see something being done about it. They wanted some comfort, some reassurance from their
Yeah, I
leaders.
think the thing with that though is it does remind you of how bad governments are at organizing things, and so therefore, for instance, like net zero plans and stuff like that. How much when they've got a wind farm rollout, do they get the best tender? Do they get the best equipment? What's it like? That's the
Yeah,
problem with all these
yeah,
things. Whether it's the NHS, whether it's military spending, do they get the best tank? We just never know. But if government spending on the pandemic is anything to go by, you wouldn't trust them to run a piss up in a brewery, really.
no, no. I think it
That's the
was
problem. That is a problem.
earlier this week, Keir Starmer's statement. I think he's planning to reduce emissions by 81%, I think he said, in 11 years' time. Cut emissions by 81% in 11 years' time. That's right. And I just think, how many statements have we heard similar to this one? And actually, can we just get on with it and just make some small steps? And can we see some viable actions rather than just hearing these big statements and then nothing gets done?
Well,
And
the
then
other
it's
problem
trying to crawl back from it in a few years' time.
yeah, well, it's all, I've had that all my life. By the year 2000, we've got to do this. Year 2010, we've got to do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
all these sorts of 2020 was a big one, and 2030. And uh,
yeah,
one of the years I won't be here, but that'll, there'll be another target there. 2050, probably I'll be scraping to make that one. Anyway, you'll be there to see, breathe in the fresh air and the clear sunshine and everything. It's fantastic, right?
yeah,
No, it's just there was something on Twitter I saw, or X as they call it now, which apparently everyone's leaving because it's horrible and right wing. You just have a tiny, the world map with with the UK on it, in sort of red, and just
yeah.
that's we're going to spend 100 billion, just on that little speck. Well, what about all the bigger places like Russia and America and Brazil and China? You know, even if we were just even if we were just all riding bicycles and had no emissions at all in this country, somehow it would make no difference, would it? We had nuclear power and we were all riding bicycles. It would make absolutely no difference to anything. Plus, we don't even know, it's a bit like the COVID thing. We don't even know, even if we reduced all the emissions in the world to zero, there's nuclear power and we're all riding bicycles. Uh, we still don't know what the effect would be, whether it would stop global warming or not.
No, and I think the thing is, unless we're all doing it, unless it's a collective effort, actually not much is going to change here. So we either all need to jump on board or not.
Yes, and we're not because other people. I mean, I think if you look, just for instance, Africa, which I know is a continent you know very well, don't think they're
Hmm.
very big on paying 30p at the local supermarket a carrier bag for life or whatever it's called.
No, it's not quite that
The whole
culture. No,
shopping, the whole shopping thing, maybe 30p. You see what I'm saying? It's something like that. I'm
yeah,
not sure about
yeah.
the currencies and everything else, but I don't think they're big. And Africa is quite a big place. So while they're, they've got the diesel engines and the
Exactly.
air conditioners on at full blast and everything. I mean, that's the other thing. In hot
Yeah.
areas,
Still
if
using
air conditioners,
coal, gas, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
exactly. So what do
Still
we
quite a lot
do?
of money in it.
So what do
So
we? I mean, I suppose it just makes it look as though all these initiatives are just a way of getting us to pay tax indirectly, pay more to the exchequer indirectly. It's just
yes, yeah.
the ruse to pay more tax. You're already paying.
Coming full circle, I think that's exactly how people are feeling. They were waiting for change from this Labour government, and actually that hasn't happened, and people are just a little bit downbeaten now.
A little
I
bit.
have heard some rumors. I have heard some rumors that there's a new political party coming into play. Have you heard these rumors?
No, as I wasn't involved, I don't need to be, to be have any knowledge of that. But it's not
Okay, okay.
reform.
Just
It's
wanted
not. What is it? What is it? Is it the sort of? Is it some green thing? Is it some?
well, it's sort of called. I can't remember the name exactly. I think it's a sort of centrist party, central or centrist party, and it's about sort of
We had that for 50
re-establishing
years.
the core values that we've lost behind,
Oh.
and transparency and all those good things. So that would be interesting
Well, that
to.
sounds like the because I had nothing else to do with my childhood. That sounds like the Social Democrats starting in 1981. So they were doing all that. There's always
History repeating itself,
yes,
hey?
there's always that. Yes, yes, but they were great people and they went nowhere. But well, I suppose actually they turned into the Lib Dems, so they've done quite well actually. I mean that they actually. Maybe they will be a threat at the next election. Maybe the Lib Dems will stop reform coming in. It's one of those, right? And allow Labour to have have a second term, which would be which would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Really,
Yeah, so
excellent
they can
stuff.
actually adhere to some of the policies that they've set out for themselves.
They'd say we need another term to finish the job.
Yeah, but don't they all say that? They all say that.
There's a line for every, I think with the black hole, this is worse than expected. That's a good line. Then more time to finish the job is good. Blaming the other side, and then
Yeah.
blaming, like the weather, the war, the this, that kind of thing. Probably, when Putin nukes us, then that'll be an excuse as well. But
Hmm.
plenty to look forward to. Um, on that note, Molly, thank you very much indeed. I expect you're the host. I'm not used to being the interviewee, but maybe you can tell us, you could give us the outro.
Well, Zach, it's been a pleasure to hear from you. People are here to hear from you, not from me. So thank you for your insights and your wise words. And I will see you back here next week, hopefully.
Thank you. And I forgot to talk about the pound falling, Bitcoin rising, and gold falling, but that can be next week. That's
Let's
fine.
speak about that next week. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, look, have a good weekend and speak to you soon.